You're working with a professional here!
Oh, hi there. My name is Prostetnic Vogon Jeffs, and this is part 4 of my 5-part deep dive into the strange and beautiful world of horror films. I'll just cut to the chase. You should check out parts 1 through 3 before watching this video. And you probably shouldn't watch this video if you're squeamish about the more taboo themes of the horror genre.
It's blasphemous and wicked.
We're going to be talking about some weird movies here, so this may not be for everyone. Okay, buckle up, Buttercup. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Film censorship is a real On the one hand, as a father and as someone who appreciates the ever-diminishing trait of common sense, I completely understand its necessity. I think there are some films, some types of content, that are just too extreme for kids. And while age ratings can, have, and will be abused by overprotective bureaucrats and politicians, I think they are helpful and, generally speaking, serve a noble purpose.
I do it to protect people.
On the other hand, as an artist and creator, I kinda think censorship is hot garbage that stifles creativity and free expression. Maybe both points are valid. Maybe that's just the price we pay for living in a society. Oh my god, we live in a society! Let's rewind a bit. What is censorship? Well, when it comes to motion pictures, it is 3 practices that manifest in slightly different ways depending on the country in question. The removal of frames or scenes from a particular film prior to release, the restriction of content based on age, or the outright banning of a film. These practices are usually the result of objections to the content of a film, be they political or moral in nature. From a macro level, most restrictions focus on sacrilegious content, extreme violence, or other controversial materials. Censorship has been around in one form or another for as long as the written word has existed. I'm guessing. Listen, we're talking about film censorship here. I'm not doing a video essay about censorship in general. And I'm not a historian.
Oh yeah. That's right.
All you need to know is that not long after the arrival of films, governments around the world were trying to exert authority over the industry.
But what if it gets into the hands of children?
Exactly.
Kids could be rewinding and watching those scenes over and over.
Britain jump-started the censorship of films back in 1912. Well, hold on. Germany actually introduced legislation to censor films way back in 1906, but then abolished film censorship in 1918, only to reintroduce it with the Motion Picture Law of 1920. And the United States followed suit with the Hays Code of 1922, which later became the Motion Picture Production Code of 1930. It's for your safety. Shut up and stop questioning authority. The Hays Code wasn't really taken seriously by anyone in Hollywood until the Catholic Church stepped in around 1934. They threatened to boycott indecent movies.
No. No, no, no!
And the prospect of legitimate financial losses made studios pay attention. Movies without a Hays Code seal of approval could face a $25,000 fine. And a very real anti-horror intention was introduced with some incredibly ambiguous guidelines. Lowered moral standards were forbidden. Films that had the audience sympathize with criminals, sinners, or evildoers was off limits. There was a push for quote-unquote correct standards of life, whatever the hell that means. And laws, both human and natural, were to be respected.
You will respect my authority!
It gets crazier. The Hays Code expressly prohibited profanity, nudity, drug trafficking, white slavery, interracial relationships, ridicule of the clergy, STDs, sex perversion, and the willful offense to any nation, race, or creed. In other words, they got rid of all the fun stuff. The folks behind the Hays Code were also not super into big screen representations of non-hetero, non-Christian, non-white, or unmarried individuals. Shocking. I know. In 1968, the United States replaced the Hays Code with the MPAA film rating system, 5 classifications aimed at helping audiences understand what they were getting into before watching a movie. I'm sure most of you are familiar with these. G for general audiences, PG for suggested parental guidance, PG-13 for parents strongly cautioned, R for restricted, not for kids under 17 unless they have an irresponsible parent or an older brother with a bit of facial hair, and NC-17, which restricts access to, hold on, wait for it, only those who are 17 and older. There were actually only 4 classifications when the rating system was first introduced. You can thank Gremlins and Temple of Doom for PG-13, which didn't exist prior to 1984. Well, that's an appropriate year. Anyway, most countries have something similar in place, though the age ranges and naming conventions may differ. At a fundamental level, I think these systems are well-meaning, but I don't know a single person, nor have I ever visited a single theater that has taken this kind of system seriously. Well, scratch that. You know who took this stuff seriously? The UK, otherwise known as the Germany of the 1980s and 2020s.
No, don't laugh, sir. That is the truth.
More specifically, it was Mary Whitehouse and the NVALA, the National Viewers and Listeners Association.
Your children and your family are very much at risk, particularly at this time, from video nasties, from media violence, from and even could be from cable television.
Due to a loophole in the UK's film classification laws, a black market of uncensored films was established in the early 80s. This drove Mary absolutely mental.
Theft, lying, swearing, verbal aggression, etc., etc., etc.
She initiated a campaign that would eventually lead to video store raids, the infamous DPP list, and the Video Recordings Act of 1984. Again, the irony of that year.
Mrs. Whitehouse kept some of her harshest criticism for the new BBC series EastEnders.
The DPP list of questionable videos, or video nasties as they were called, was made public in June of 1983. 72 films appeared on the list, 39 of which were successfully prosecuted under the Obscene Publications Act.
Totally unsuitable for family viewing time.
Dealers or distributors of these films could be fined or jailed, and many titles were confiscated from retailers by local police. There was an additional list of 82 movies known as Section 3 video nasties that could not be prosecuted but were still fair game for confiscation. You're probably thinking, holy shit, these movies must have been horrendous abominations. They must be beyond vile if the government was forced to step in and take action. Well, let me give you a small sample of the horror movies that found their way onto these lists. The Last House on the Left, The Evil Dead, Possession, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Friday the 13th, The Hills Have Eyes, Phantasm, Prom Night, Scanners, Suspiria, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and The Thing. Crazy Brits. I mean, I guess it is all about context, right? These movies seem pretty tame to us now, but at the time, some of them were unquestionably shocking. But don't panic, as most of the films from the DPP list have since been approved by the BBFC.
Children at risk again.
And make no mistake, the UK isn't the only place where this nonsense happens. Movies get banned all over the world all of the time.
It's always the same, and it's always different.
And censorship isn't going away anytime soon. If anything, you could probably make a pretty strong case that it's on the rise again, specifically in Western nations.
Don't tell me of it. I don't want to hear.
I would be remiss if I didn't take this moment to say, digital ID. If you want to prevent your life from becoming a real-world horror show, you might consider saying the same.
We better get away from these parts. It isn't safe.
But let's not go too far down that rabbit hole. Back to the topic at hand. I'm not going to offer up a list of banned movies you should watch. Well, actually, you know what? That's not true.
Oh, you really must be joking.
No, I'm definitely going to do that. Here it is. There are more, obviously, because most bans are antiquated nonsense, but these are just the ones I could think of off the top of my head. Instead of going in depth with these movies here, I'm just going to encourage you to watch them at your leisure. And instead, we'll spend the rest of our time looking at 5 banned movies that I encourage you not to watch. Ranked from, maybe take a pass, to, dear God, do not watch this movie under any circumstance. Okay, we'll start with the least offensive of the lot and a representative selection.
Just watch.
I think Cannibal Holocaust has some merit. It's a commentary on the barbarism of quote-unquote civilized society and the ethics, or lack thereof, of modern journalism. I'm all for that, and it earns some cred for getting the director, screenwriter, and producers convicted of obscenity charges upon its Italian release. The movie was later banned in the UK as a publicity stunt. Go Video, the distributors of the controversial film, wrote anonymous complaints to Mary Whitehouse and the NVALA in an effort to drum up publicity for the VHS release, which didn't go quite the way they had intended. The movie was banned in the UK, Australia, South Africa, and a number of other countries, mainly because of the half-dozen animals killed on screen, but also the multiple instances of graphic assault of a not-so-sexy nature. Know what I mean?
Pretend you've seen nothing.
Really though, I think if the movie is going to be banned for anything, it should be because of its influence on found footage movies. That shit is unforgivable. But like I mentioned at the beginning of this, Cannibal Holocaust is a representative selection. I'm not trying to single it out here as something to be avoided. I think it's part of a larger group of movies that were banned for somewhat understandable reasons that became more popular and more important than they actually ought to be. It's just not a very good movie.
We have to let the public know the truth. We'll let the people be the judge.
The acting is subpar, the writing is nothing special, and the only reason anyone cares about it is because of the controversy. These same points can be applied to a lot of the video nasties. The point I'm trying to make here is that a controversial movie is not the same as a good movie, and a lot of the video nasties are just not worth your time. I might be wrong, but I get the feeling that every kid who grew up in the 80s and 90s heard about Faces of Death in the same way. It was a fringe movie, a rumor or dark secret shared among teenagers. It was that taboo video that featured real deaths caught on camera. It was the morbid precursor to Girls Gone Wild and bum fights, and it was something that seemed to only be possessed by your friend's cousin's friend's slimeball older brother. Faces of Death isn't even really a movie. It's more or less just 100 minutes of morbid stock footage juxtaposed against a woman giving birth right before the credits roll, and bookended by some weak bullshit narrative. Maybe you think I'm exaggerating. I am not. The amount of stock footage in this movie would make Ed Wood blush. Open heart surgery, dog fights, tribal rituals and animal slaughter, monkey skull bashing, seal clubbing, parachute malfunctions. You name it, this movie has some mediocre footage of it. This montage of milquetoast violence was banned in multiple countries, primarily in response to the numerous scenes of animal abuse. It's a rare case where I kind of agree with the censors. The film's artistic merit is specious, and the scenes in question aren't created with special effects. Now, I suppose you could make an argument for historical merit, but it contains legitimate animal cruelty, and personally, I think it's pretty egregious that anyone would be profiting off of that kind of material. And honestly, the only reason to watch this movie is to say that you've seen it, and that's not as much of a brag as some people would want it to be. Okay, what the hell is wrong with you people?
Now, let's see.
How the hell did Tom Six get away with making 3 of these things? I can kind of understand the first one as much as anyone can understand it, you know? It's a novel concept that's sure to gross people out.
I was really drawn to the film because of the medical aspect of it.
I suppose that's worth making a movie about. I mean, not really, but we'll give Tom and his crew the benefit of the doubt. I just can't wrap my head around 3. 3 of them! For those who aren't familiar with the series, it's about stitching people together ass to mouth.
If you were a surgeon, you could actually perform that surgery.
That's all you need to know. Actually, that's more than any of us need to know. Full Sequence, the second in the trilogy, was initially banned in the UK but has since been released after nearly 3 minutes of edits. The story revolves around a weird little man named Martin who is obsessed with the first Human Centipede movie. He decides to go on a crazy abduction spree and build his own Human Centipede in an empty warehouse. But here's the thing. I'm not advising you to avoid this movie because of all of the depraved nonsense. I'm not advising you to avoid it because of its third act fixation on the passing of excrement from point A to point Z. And yes, I'm Canadian and I say Z instead of Z because that's how the song works, damn it. No, listen, I'm advising you to avoid this movie because it's not particularly good and, spoilers, the events of the story are a daydream. It was all just a psychotic hallucination, and any movie that pulls that crap after the turn of the century deserves nothing but disdain.
I'm sure it's just a passing phase.
F*** you, Tom Six. Oh, you're making a movie based on the Marquis de Sade's novel, The 120 Days of Sodom? And you're updating it to take place in late-stage World War II Italy and infusing the adaptation with a heavy dose of Dante's Divine Comedy? That actually sounds like it could be pretty interesting, right? Except for the fact that it's nearly unwatchable. Listen, I love movies that criticize terrible governments. I love stories that speak truth to power and illustrate the horrors of war and fascism and excess power and all that stuff. But Salo is a punishing watch. Extended scenes of nudity, abuse, torture, golden showers, and poop consumption make this art horror flick a chore to sit through. And that's before you factor in the questionable ages of several actors.
How old are these girls? Are any of them underage?
I don't know. So, I have to assume they're all underage.
As developed as they may seem,
it doesn't mean they're 18.
The movie left me feeling sick and depraved, which I think is the point. I'm not trying to say that it's not effective in its aspirations. It certainly is. But this movie is not for the faint of heart. I'm not kidding here. A lot of people will use that phrase to describe fairly milquetoast horror movies, so it may not be an appropriate warning, but I really can't stress this enough. Unless you're a cinephile intent on watching every single horror movie regardless of how disturbing it might be, this movie is not for you. Salo was banned in multiple countries for all the reasons you would expect. Oh, and the filmmaker was murdered 3 weeks before its release. Wild stuff. The less said about this movie, the better. What the f***? A Serbian Film is, according to those involved in its production, a reaction to the state of modern Serbian media. Okay, if you say so. Unlike the 4 aforementioned movies, which I would ever so softly recommend avoiding if your constitution isn't very strong, this one should be a hard pass for 99.9% of the population. A Serbian Film is soul-crushing and spirit-breaking. I can't even bring myself to recap it in any form. You can find a synopsis online if you're desperate to find out what happens. All I'm going to say is that it's about an aging adult film star, and the second half of the movie has left me permanently scarred. Run. Do not walk away from this movie. It is absolute nightmare fuel in the worst possible way. I wanted to include a few more movies in this list, but I'm not a huge fan of gonzo or extreme horror movies. I think it's great that they exist. I'm glad that there are artists out there expressing themselves in truly unique and disturbing ways, but a lot of this stuff just isn't for me. And spending countless hours editing footage of movies that have severely disturbed me isn't my idea of a good time. I'll close this all out by giving some honorable mentions to 1993's Shram, 2008's Martyrs, and 2024's Terrifier 3. If you're like me, you might consider taking a pass on those movies too. As for movie bans and censorship, it's important to note their historical significance. The history of censorship provides genuine insight on societal processes for dealing with discomfort through art. It says nothing about the quality of a film and everything about the scruples of its detractors.
Everything that I have done is to protect you.
I think censorship of any kind can be summed up best by the phrase, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions." The concept of protecting the public from harm can be altruistic and noble, but more often than not leads to unintended negative consequences.
Well, no plan's perfect.
The Hays Code of the 30s, 40s, and 50s, along with the video Nasties mania of the 80s, are perfect examples of this. The good fight isn't against censorship in toto, nor is it for censorship. The good fight is finding a common sense balance that protects free expression and those who need protecting in equal measure. I mean, we can dream, can't we?
The power of Christ compels you! Lock it now!
Is this true?
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
Oh, people, will you please listen to yourselves? Will you please listen to what you're saying?
I hate when they been shaved.
I have many boyfriends.
Could I be your friend?
Sure.
I will be famous.
You must help me. You must. You're my only hope. You must.
Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time for the conclusion of Horror Business. We'll be talking about the current state of horror and where it's heading in the future.
Sounds like fun.
And don't forget your pen and paper, because there will be a test.
What? Nothing.
Till next time.
Jesus, this place makes my head hurt.